how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because we're going to be taking a look at Scream 7. This just came out February 27, 2026, and was directed by Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson, you guys know as the writer of Scream 1 through 4. Now they've given him the director's chair. That is super cool. The movie stars Neve Campbell, Isabelle May, Courtney Cox, and features a returning face. We'll get to him in a minute. And I suppose if we're talking about Scream 7, I should briefly address the road that led us here. The star of Scream 5 and 6 made some comments on the internet that the studio took to be anti-Semitic, and thus she was fired from this movie. Shortly after she was fired, Jenna Ortega also left the project, and so did the directors of 5 and 6. Thus, the original plans for Scream 7 had to be scrapped, and they came up with this new movie instead. And right off the bat, I want to say I'm not a political channel, and I'm not a drama channel. We're not really going to get into all that. I'm a review channel. We're going to talk about the movie that we actually got. If you have to discuss it in the comments, I just ask that you be respectful. But all that being said, when I heard about their new plans for Scream 7, I was actually way more excited about them than anything that could have come from the 5 and 6 crowd. I mean, 5 and 6 are fine, and when I first saw them, I was just glad to be getting more Scream. But in the years since, I realized I haven't really thought too much about them or really revisited them much. And despite my giant DVD collection, I haven't actually even picked up 6 yet. I really do need to get on that. But the thing with 5 and 6 that really got me the most is that Neve Campbell was kind of in the background of 5, and she was missing from 6 altogether. And really, the Scream franchise is Sidney Prescott's story. You can't just take it away from her like that. When I heard that Neve Campbell would return, it would be about her and her daughter, kind of like Scream's version of H2O, S3O. Okay, that doesn't quite roll off the tongue, does it? But when I heard that that's what this movie was about and they're bringing Kevin Williamson in to direct it, I was like, okay, this looks like a good path for this movie. And now that I've seen it, I can say, yeah, this movie was pretty fun. The relationship between mother and daughter, the place where it put Sidney to begin with, and some absolutely killer Ghostface sequences. This sequel really does hold its own, especially if you guys are big Sidney Prescott fans. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this movie does have a few clunky moments and definitely some faults with it. I'll get into them in a minute. But the thing with the Scream franchise, the way I see it, you obviously have part 1 at the top, and then right below that is part 2. But I feel that Scream 3 through 6 were pretty subjective with good and bad stuff from each entry, and I feel that a lot of people have really different Scream rankings, and I feel that part 7 fits very comfortably in that 3 through 6 crowd. And overall, I had a fun time with it, and I can definitely recommend it. And I'll probably pick this up as soon as it comes out because I really do want to rewatch it. But before we get any farther in the review, what's the movie about? I know that people are super sensitive to spoilers for new movies, especially when they're a mystery like Scream, so I will say right off the bat, I'm gonna focus primarily on setup and try not to ruin anything major, so no significant spoilers, but from here on out I will be talking a little bit about the plot. We open up with Sidney Prescott. She's moved away from Woodsboro, and she's in a similar kind of small, quiet little town. She's married to the town's sheriff, who's actually played by Joel McHale. I saw him recently in Animal Control. Cool that he's popping up again here. And she has a daughter. The daughter's named Tatum, after Sidney's friend from part 1. And the thing is, where Neve Campbell is in her life right now, she's kind of isolated from the Ghostface killings. They get brought up every now and then, and she can deal with it whenever someone asks her. But she's mainly got peace. She's mostly distanced herself from it, and now she's living a nice and happy life with her little family. There is some drama between the mother and the daughter. Hey, I'm named after a girl, one of your friends, that died horribly to a Ghostface killer. Does this mean I'm doomed? I haven't really been trained. What if a Ghostface comes up? Am I gonna die just like the original Tatum did? You won't talk to me about your past, and there is this gap here. But even though Sydney seems to be a little overprotective, her life in general seems really good. But of course, the peace is going to be shaken up when she gets a call from another Ghostface. At first, she thinks it's a prank, someone else who's found that voice changer, but then Ghostface drops a bomb over the telephone. And yes, this is something that happens really early on in the movie. It's not a spoiler, and you guys probably have heard a little bit about this. But basically, the idea with this movie is Ghostface says, "This time I'm not hiding, Sydney. I'll tell you exactly who I am." And right off the bat, this Ghostface claims to be Stu Macher, back from the dead from part 1. You even do get to see some videos of him, and they have to debate whether those are real or like an AI deepfake. And we do get some nice commentary about how you can't necessarily trust everything you see these days, but you get a mystery going back and forth, and I love how they play this mystery where a fact's revealed and it can easily sway you from this is all fake to maybe he actually is back. And while I will say Matthew Lillard doesn't have terribly much screen time in this movie, the man is an amazing actor, and what little screen time he has, he does a grade A gold star job with it. It is super cool to see him on screen. Guy's amazing. Now I will say this whole plot element actually comes from the original idea for Scream 3. Scream 3 was going to be about Matthew Lillard in prison, and he was going to be manipulating people, kind of trying to turn them into new Ghostfaces. The studio would cut this idea and make them rewrite that movie, and I will say I wish we got this idea popping up then instead of now. Having him absent for just one movie would make way more sense than 5, and here you have to kind of say it's a little bit improbable that he would show up now after all these years. But hey, at least we got some form of this idea down, right? Naturally, the Ghostface caller is lent some credibility when an actual Ghostface does appear and start terrorizing the town, and I will say the Ghostface sequences in here are super cool. You've seen a bit in the trailer with Stu Macher's house, which is now turned into this museum Airbnb thing. It's a really fun opening sequence, and to get to see the full version of that in the movie theater, really good. One of the better Scream openings, and then we do also get some really fun sequences, like a really intense scene at Sydney's house with a good punch of an ending, and a really interesting scene that takes place at Sydney's school auditorium. They're doing this play to kind of like mirror Scream 2. So yeah, the Ghostface sequences here are really good and really intense. We also get a few familiar faces popping up. Naturally, Gail figures all this stuff out and she's going to go to Sydney's town to try to help her. And she actually drags along the 2 remainders from 5 and 6, Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding. And I really like them in this movie. The idea that Gail's found someone and is kind of taken them under her wing and is like, you guys are going to be reporters and you're going to get some good scoops for me. And the 2 are kind of competitive and like really into it. It's a reinvention of their characters, but I think it works super well. I will say some of the other new characters are just kind of okay. One of the friends is actually played by McKenna Grace, which is pretty cool. She was in Ghostbusters 3 and 4 as well as Five Nights at Freddy's 2. To see her pop up in here, I'm like, okay, she's gonna be like a new generation Scream Queen. That's pretty interesting. But as far as the rest go, they're just kind of okay, and the movie has to take a little bit of a measure towards the end to kind of write some of these characters out of the movie to kind of focus on Sydney and her daughter, which is what the movie wants to do. And I guess in regard to that, there is one other thing I want to mention. I talked about earlier how this movie wasn't Scream 3. It's also not Scream 5. And I think that is the thing, is if we hadn't had 5 and 6, this sort of weight that they were going for would have had way more meaning behind it. This is one of those movies, I've escaped Ghostface for so long, I have a nice and peaceful life, and then like H2O, Ghostface is coming back yet again. And if there actually was a big gap between episode 4 and this movie, that would have had way more weight. And these like nostalgic callbacks would have felt way more earned because of the time between the 2 movies. this is a movie that goes out of its way to mirror Scream 1, i.e. this is all coming back, and of course where Scream were self-referential. Don't Fear the Reaper and Red Right Hand play in two very similar scenes to what they did in Scream 1, and it's all very intentional, but again, having 5 and 6 there does ruin the weight. I'm actually fairly convinced that Kevin Williamson wrote the original version of this script as his version of Scream 5, then the studio went with radio silence instead, and when they offered the position back to him, I have a feeling he just took his old script and rewrote it slightly to fit within modern continuity. But yeah, this movie would have been way better if we did actually have that gap there, and now that we don't, the weight is a little bit messed up. And the last thing that everyone says with this movie, and I'm going to touch on this ever so lightly, is that when the mystery's finally revealed, what's really going on here is a little bit weak. Now, I will say in regards to the Scream sequels, every now and then you do get a pretty weak character motivation, and this is definitely among those. I'd really wish that if this was the idea they were going for, they had taken some time and fleshed it out earlier in the script so that it made a little bit more sense. But whatever, it didn't ruin the movie for me. While the motivation was weak, we did get a pretty fun final sequence, and that's the thing, is even though this movie does have clunky bits, even though part of this movie really should have been Scream 3 or Scream 5, and I know the mirroring may bug people, but again, if this was Scream 5, it would have made way more sense. I still want to say I had a really good time with it. Sydney's nice new life and that being threatened, some really intense Ghostface sequences. Overall, I thought it was pretty fun. Again, far from perfect, but a really nice Scream entry that does some cool stuff. I'm curious where you guys would put this in your ranking. I think it's somewhere in the middle for me, but I definitely can't wait to give it a rewatch. And in general, if you guys were upset with how Sydney was treated in those last two movies, this is definitely going to be for you. And actually, fun fact, if you watch this in the theaters, they played the Scary Movie trailer, and at the end of the trailer, they swap out that joke with the nurses to be a different joke about how Sydney wasn't in Scream 6, which I thought was super funny, and I loved getting a variant of the trailer just for the movie we were watching. I can't wait for Scary Movie 6 as well. But anyway, all this being said, let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you, you really are helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my 2026 movies playlist, where you can see my review for things like Primate, Send Help, and Iron Lung. A lot of cool stuff there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.